I want you to take a moment and think about, to what extent would you go to live your dream? How far would you go? How much would you change? What might you give up to tap into your purpose? Would you move to another country? Would you give up all your worldly belongings? Might you leave a relationship or begin a new one? There's so many things that we have to choose in order for us to live the life that we want. And as you know, time to come alive here. So in order for you to come alive, we have to make some decisions. So we're going to hear more about that in a moment. If you're not subscribed to this podcast, my name is Valerie Hope. I'm your host for Time to Come Alive. If you go to timetocomealive.com, you can subscribe and make sure that you get every single episode in your inbox. I encourage you to do that. As you know, every week we have an opportunity to have a conscious conversation, a conversation that helps you become more conscious, a conversation that helps you create better connections with yourself, with others, and ultimately become even more creative. And I have a wonderful guest here today. He'll be introducing in just a moment. But I did want to share that in light of all the things that are happening in the world right now, today is March 24th, 2020, and the coronavirus has really been the focus of our time, energy, and attention over the past few weeks here in the United States, over the past few months in other parts of the world. And this is an opportunity today to actually connect with somebody who is experiencing directly not only the impact of the coronavirus, but also has made some decisions about his own business. So Alvaro Garza, Alvaro, welcome to Time to Come Alive. You and I have known each other, oh boy, I think we determined around 7-ish years. You're an entrepreneur. You have a fantastic podcast called The Uncommon Tourist, but also in how you and I connected was through my older brother. And those of you who saw my last episode got to meet Eduardo the Hope. So my older brother and his wife have known you, Alvaro, for many, many years. And actually, my brother called me once and said, hey, you got to talk to this guy, Alvaro. He has a podcast. He lives in Barcelona, and you really got to check him out. He's doing some pretty interesting things. You might have some things in common. So first of all, thank you so much for saying yes and being able to connect this way. Welcome.
Well, I'm so excited to be here, Valerie. So for those of you that are watching right now, this is our little joke to start this podcast because I am in Barcelona. So, okay, joke's over. So thank you so much, Valerie.
There are people are going to be flying there trying to get that mask. So you better put it in a safe spot.
Good luck to them because they are there are not many around. And those that are around, as we're speaking about that, they're being asked for them to be donated back to hospitals because they are in, there's a huge need for them right now. So
yes,
I would encourage anyone to do that. So yeah, so I'm so very happy to be here, Valerie. We have so much to talk about because as you can tell by my accent, I am not from Barcelona. I am from Texas.
Yay! Yeehaw!
Yeah, yeehaw.
Why did I say that? That's such a stereotypical thing to say. I don't even know.
You can say that in Alabama too.
I probably could.
Yeah,
so Alvaro, what do you want us to know about you before we jump into the meaty parts?
Well, I loved your intro because what you said says a lot about me. While living in Dallas, I was born in Irving, and I lived in Dallas. Went to high school in Oak Cliff. Went to college up in Richardson, and so I'm a Dallas guy. And I opened as soon as I got out of college, I opened my first business in Richardson. And so I've become an entrepreneur. That's who I am. I'm an entrepreneur for many years, and started a business there. And then I opened one in Central Texas, and then in San Marcos. And then I came back to Dallas and opened another. One failed, which was probably the best lesson I've ever had in my life. And then one is still going on. I went and opened something called the Green Spot with a friend of mine up in off of Buckner in East Dallas. So Green Spot is still going, and then which is really cool to see that it's still evolving. And then I got out of that and started another marketing company. And then I met a lady and my wife, and that changes everything. And the next thing I know is we're getting married. I met her and she spoke with this funny accent, and I find out that she's Spanish, and we start going out. And then the next thing I know is I'm hopping planes to get to Spain. And the next thing I know is we're getting married. And the next thing I know is we're having 2 kids, but we did live in the States. And then she got recalled back to Barcelona. She has a specialized position within as a teacher, and she got recalled and said, "Hey, you need to come back to Spain." And she says, "Hey, guess what? I've been recalled. So what do we do? If I stay in the States, I'm out of this program that is attached to her retirement, which would have been okay. But then if we had the opportunity to come back to Barcelona," she's like, "I'm in the program and we're good to go. What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, how many times in your life do you have to go live in another country?" And so I said, "Let's go." So we packed up the house, or we packed up 5 suitcases, sold everything else, cars, house, sofas, TVs, and put our 2 kids on a car seat roller cart that I made, kind of, and we showed up in Barcelona. Yeah, so it wasn't as complicated because my wife already had some established stuff here, so it wasn't as difficult. But yeah, it has not been as easy as I thought it was going to be. So
what did you think it was going to be?
I didn't really have any expectations. When we made this decision, I had a small business that was in children's entertainment, and it wasn't yielding crazy amounts of money, so I wasn't really that worried about it. But when I did arrive in Barcelona, I was scared because the unemployment rate here in Barcelona fluctuates between 20 and 23%, which is huge. And although I do speak Spanish, I'm in Barcelona where the primary language is Catalan, and I don't speak Catalan, and I'm in the process of learning it. When I listen to it, I can understand it, but speaking, it doesn't come out as Catalan, it comes out as Spanish, so that's a problem. But of course, like any other country, we're experiencing this in the United States right now, you're going to hire your own before you're going to hire someone outside of your own culture that knows your languages, that knows the customs. So I didn't really know what I was going to get into. I knew that I had the capacities, right? Because as entrepreneurs, we always do. You and I have had discussions about do it yourself. I'm a big do it yourselfer, and I knew that I was going to cobble something out. I just wasn't really exactly sure. So the first thing I did was I became a teacher, so an English teacher. So I didn't have any expectations, except I knew that I could at least fall back on that, and that's where I started.
Starting with English.
Oh yeah, by the way, before we move on, another thing, I have 2 kids. And that's a beautiful thing that came out of my marriage, and I love my 2 kids. And I'm probably jumping ahead here, but here right now in Barcelona and in Spain, we are in mandatory quarantine. Mm-hmm. So that means that my kids are at home with me. And my wife, who is a teacher, is also home because there is no school. So to your listeners, I want to apologize in advance in case one of my kids comes yelling at me and screaming. They're 7 and 4, so their excitement is sometimes hard to keep down, and so I'm just letting you guys know there's a chance that may happen. So if I have this scary face of like, oh my gosh, my kids are here, just give me a second and I'll get back with you, okay?
No worries, and you can totally relax with that. We'll bring them in.
All right.
We'll bring them into the show. So let's back up a little bit. First of all, you mentioned sounds like a serial entrepreneur, right? So as you're very young, you started opening all these different businesses, and then you had this romance that took you all the way across to to Europe. First of all, how long have you been in Barcelona now?
I have been here for 3 years, almost 3.5 years.
3.5 years now. Okay, got it. And when you think about when you started building all these different businesses, and what was it that was calling you to do that? What was the the inspiration to build business?
Well, outside my first job out of college, I used to work for a book publisher in Allen, Texas, and it was great and it was cool and I was learning and it was exciting. And then one day I got called into an office, myself and about 55 other people, and they told
Big
me you no
office.
longer. Yeah, it's big. It was a big. Well, it's a medium-sized office. We were really tight, and they said you no longer have a position with our company. And wow, what a day that was. But you know what? It was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was the best thing that ever happened to me because I realized then that my future is in my hands, right? Because if you go down this road of always looking for jobs and trying to work for somebody, which is great, and there's nothing wrong with that, there's always a chance that you could lose that position. And that was really my first lesson out of college. I decided I really couldn't control my own future, so I started paying attention to that little itch that I was having. And that little itch was always going to the Smoothie King down in Allen, Texas. And I was like, this is a fun business. And then on top of that, it made me think about the way I was raised by my mother, who always used to put health food in our face. Before what it is today at Whole Foods, when it used to be, you buy cardboard in a bag and eat it, that was my mother. She's kind of a hippie lady. And so she taught us a new perspective on life and health and what we should be eating. And that really coincided with Smoothie King back then. And so that itch was, I like that. And I want to get into that business. So I convinced my brother, my mother, and we all went into the smoothie business. And so it was a combination between passion, something that I saw that I liked, fun, something that I saw somebody was having fun with, and then finding a way to make a living that way. And it was a combination of those three things, really four things, because I got laid off, and that's what pushed me in that direction.
So getting laid off was like that big opportunity, right? And I think many of us entrepreneurs will have those stories, right? About what was that big opportunity? What was the opening? What was the challenge, right? What you describe is really just coming to terms with what your interests are, but also how you were brought up and the things that you noticed. Tell me a little bit about why you thought that you mentioned the businesses taught you something. It sounds like each one in different ways. So what was it about having a failed business, which is you alluded to earlier, that taught you the greatest lesson?
So to catch your listeners up, we opened a first business. We opened a second business. It was successful. I had an idea to start healthy foods and vending machines. And I went to market way too early. And I took the money from the sale of those two businesses to invest in the other. And because I went to market too early, it became a failure. But during that failure, what I learned was that it was okay. I think it was a calming effect. I stressed out about the money that was lost. And I remember where I was sitting when I realized that what I had built was a disaster. It was a failure. Mm. And when you realize that it's a failure, and you're okay with it, you realize that the sun comes up. Yeah. And you lose that fear. I mean, it is such a relief when you accept the fact that you have failed, because it becomes a part of you. You accept it. And okay, I failed. Okay, what am I going to do next? Am I going to sit here? Am I going to cry? Am I going to sit here and worry about the money that was lost? Am I going to sit here and worry about what was? Or am I going to worry about and concentrate on what will be? And that taught me such a great and gracious lesson, to be able to have the ability to lose that fear. When I lost that fear, everything just kind of was calm, and it made me strong, and it made me want to go seek more, actually, not pull back and retract. It made me want to go find and learn more about what I could do, because I already failed. I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah.
And it was a great lesson, and one that I still go back and I listen to my previous self and figure out what I still can do. So it's pretty awesome.
So Alvaro, what was that tool, resource, or process that had you convert that experience of loss and failure to one of curiosity and expansion? Like, what was it that happened? What clicked?
I remember that when I realized that there was a failure, it was, it to your core, you are hurt. To your core, you are hurt. But as an entrepreneur, you realize that there's other opportunities out there. So, like I said, you I could either cry about it, or I could get up and I can do something about it. And that's what I chose to do. And what clicked was realizing that there's other opportunities out there. I'm a smart guy. I see the opportunities out there. Now, I took a side job, right, because I still had to pay some bills. It wasn't the best job in the world, but I did what I had to do, and I was okay with that. But also, kind of taking that side job in the corporate world, it motivated me to continue to push. So it was just realizing that there's a bigger opportunity out there. You have to do what you have to do, but you have to keep pushing forward. And you find resources, and you network, and you find out trends, and you look at things differently. And that's what really motivated me. It's like, wow, there's bigger things out there. Let me go get it. So
Yeah.
that's what
Well,
did it.
I can identify with some of your experience because although never really thought entrepreneurship was going to be part of my future, I didn't really think I wanted that kind of responsibility, to be honest. But
Mhm.
when I was laid off from my corporate job, I remember just thought, I'll be like a freelance, coach, speaker, etc. I'll just figure out, I'll do little things here and there. I didn't want to commit to anything. But I had 3 distinct experiences with people that gave me a little nudge, little push. And each time it made me go, oh, I don't know if I want to do this.
Right,
But
right.
every time it just became like, okay, obviously there's something that's coming up for me that's fearful, which is why I should probably explore. That's usually my tell. If I'm
Right.
feeling fearful about something, apprehensive about something, anxious about something, is where I go, okay, let's peek behind the curtain. Like, why am I so scared to do this thing? And eventually, like you said, the people showed up, the resources, information, everything I needed to make the next moves. But so
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
an
most.
interesting point, isn't it? Because that part that you're talking about um, being a entrepreneur, and we do it ourselves. I've learned programming. I've learned how to build websites. I'm learning audio engineering. Those fearful things that when you sit back and you take a step back and go, yeah, it's not really that bad. What's the worst that's going to happen? I've already failed. I mean, what's really the worst that could happen? So no, I've been there. When you have those fears of like, well, I really should I be doing that? And you end up talking yourself out of it, right? But when you don't talk yourself out of it and you acknowledge those fears and you embrace those fears,
Mm-hmm.
you learn something, and then
Yeah.
you find out something about yourself that you had no idea you could do. And that's the beauty of it. I think that's what keeps us motivated, right?
Yeah. I
I
want to
think
do.
that we just continue to learn.
This is interesting. You said what you just said, I think also has me reframe the idea of fear, because fear does play, I think, a really pivotal role in our lives. Fear is a great motivator to avoid something. I don't think that we should necessarily always follow the fear. What I do think we need to pay attention to is there's resistance, right? There's a form of fear that is more of a resistance than it is a warning, do not go here, do not enter, right? It's
Right.
more of a, I don't want to, I don't want to. And I think being able to distinguish between, is it a, don't go here, this is not for you, you will die. And
Right. Yeah.
I don't feel like it. I'm not sure, all those insecurities that might pop up. Once we distinguish that, I think is when we start to go, okay, what you're saying then is really helpful, to accept it, to embrace it. Like, why am I resisting? Let me just give in rather than resist, surrender, right? And see what's available. So I want to pivot now, because you obviously had to also make some big decisions once you and your wife decided that moving back to Barcelona was the next thing to do. So walk us through what that experience of making that choice and how you were going to manage your life moving forward.
So we had talked about that. We talked about, the what ifs. What if this happens, or what if that happens? We don't really know. It was trying, because we're not only talking about moving our family. We're not talking about me just doing a pivot when it comes to work. But I'm a Texan. It isn't just that. It's about my family. I don't. How many times am I going to see my family now? How many times am I going to be in contact with my friends back in Texas, who I love so much? How am I going to deal with that, right? So it was more complicated than just saying, hey, well, let's go find a job, and how are we going to do this or that? But like I said earlier, coming here was not as difficult, let's say, of moving to a place where we don't have resources. So I don't know whether we would have come if we didn't know that we had some type of cradle to kind of fall in. And I realize that that's a privileged conversation, because not everybody has that soft landing.
Yeah.
So the process was not easy, because the what ifs were big time. We're not even talking about me and work. We knew that my wife had work here, but what about our kids and educating them, right? What do we do about the language? How are we going to have my son be, and by the way, our kids are American, they were born in the States, but how are we going to do this really difficult play of family? So we're talking about work. We're talking about relationships, my wife and I. We're talking about our kids. We're talking about my familial relationships. We're talking about so many different factors. What do we do about my retirement and paying into the United States Social Security system? How do I get involved? How do I get health care? I mean, you want to talk about starting over. It was like pushing reset, and still is. I mean, it has been it has not been an easy process. Like I mentioned earlier, Spain is dealing with some very high unemployment, and the resources that I had in the States, I don't have. I'm just now, after 3 years, building up my network to where I'm somewhat on a level that I was in the States, where if I need something, I can go and find it. So it was pretty difficult, but ultimately, you only live life once. So we decided that it is going to be okay. The faith that we have is going to be okay. Our kids are going to be okay. We're going to be okay. That was really something that we found solace in, and decided to make the decision to come.
You alluded to this in the very beginning, but there are some things that you've not only learned, but that you've also discovered about yourself, right? Things that probably even surprised you. So what surprised you the most about yourself in making that transition to live in Barcelona?
Oh, wow. I don't think we have enough time.
We'll pick the top one.
Well, I mean, the first one that comes to mind is language, right? Because here, everything is written in Catalan. And my Spanish wasn't that great when I arrived. I spoke probably more pocho, if you know what that means. Very broken. Yeah. Which
pigeon Spanish.
Pigeon Spanish, and it wasn't. I mean, maybe it wasn't that bad, but I have learned. I learned that my Spanish has gotten better, so I learned that about myself. But I'm always being challenged with everything here, because it's so difficult to go out and see something written in Catalan, or that people speak to you in Catalan, and they know by looking at my face and my accent that I'm not Catalan, but they still speak to me in Catalan. So I learned that I can overcome these things, that I've kind of gotten through those things, and I've kind of been able to get through the maze with the language barrier here. So I learned that about myself. I've become very resourceful, starting from zero. I have gone out and I'm like, okay, I don't know what this social is all about, but I walk into the social. I'm Alvaro. I'm new here. What do you know? This is what I know. Let's share. Let's get together. So
Wait. You walk into a social event like that?
I do.
Okay, but I'm sure you say it in Catalan? Do you say it in Spanish? Are you talking in English? Like, who are these people? Tell us
It
the
just,
story. I want to know this. Tell me the story.
well, it depends on where you go. Barcelona is a very international town, and the common language amongst international people is either Spanish or English. So I don't think I could walk into a Catalan social and just walk in, and I would say in Spanish, they would, and you know this is kind of funny, and I would start speaking to them in Spanish, and they're like, "Who's this guy? Get him out of here." Um, yeah, but I walk in and I just introduce myself. I have no problems doing that. There is no fear walking around and introducing yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess you can see this is, I guess, becoming the theme of this is that there is no fear in learning a new language. There is no fear in going out and introducing yourself. There is no fear in making that step. And so I do that. I do it quite often. And so that's something that I've learned about myself. And then learning a new profession. I'm now in the tour business, and I've had to learn that profession. I'm learning the ins, the outs, and I'm building on my entrepreneurship, on my entrepreneurship background, and creating something new here in Barcelona, which excites me and is nerve-wracking. And I have to find resources. Thank God, because we are now in. For this as an example, I'm in Barcelona and you're in Dallas, and it's easy for us to have these conversations. And I'm taking advantage of that and finding resources and networks that I didn't have access to or don't have access to only here in Barcelona. So that's expanding as we speak. So yeah, I've learned to utilize what I've learned in the past and help define me as I move forward. And most importantly, that failure. So yeah.
Oh man, no fear. I like
No
that.
fear. No fear.
Alvaro, what had you decide that tourism was the industry you wanted to get into?
Well, I'm an introvert, and
What? You just talked about how you busted down doors. Okay. Oh, this was
so
being facetious. Okay.
yes,
I was like, are you kidding me?
no, I'm cracking jokes all the time.
Good.
So I um, there was someone that was looking for a tour guide, and you may have heard this, but teaching English doesn't really yield you much money.
My brother
And
has shared with me. Yes.
yes. So I there was someone looking for a tour guide, and I was like, what? Why not? What do I have to lose, right? So I went and they gave me a test, and I went home and I studied and I read and read and just dove into Spanish history and Catalan history and the history of Aragon, and I passed the test. But the interesting, cool thing about that is that there's another element of being in the tour business that yes, you have to know your knowledge, but yes, you also have to be able to present well. You have to be a really good teacher. So I pull those experiences that I had in the past of, hey, I have to present myself. Hey, I hope you can't hear that.
Of
Okay, cool.
course.
Okay, all right. I'm just so nervous that they're just going to bust in here any minute now.
We'll
But
roll with it. We'll roll with it.
okay, so I pull those experiences from the past of the simple things of, hey, how are you? Welcome to my smoothie factory. How can I assist you, or how can I help you? And then I'm also a teacher, and I've learned about myself that I am a natural teacher, and a combination of those things kind of push me towards the tour industry, and that is where I'm really finding that I'm really enjoying myself. It's taken me all this time to find out that I really enjoy the tour industry, which honestly I had not even guessed or thought about prior to coming here. So
What kind of
that's
tours are you giving? Like, walk us. Well, in a minute or so, give us a tour. Like, give us a taste of the Alvaro tour. Like, what are you paying attention to? What are you sharing? What are you teaching?
I think that when first of all I put myself in my clients and I call them my client shoes. What do if I'm going to a new city, what do I want to do? What do I want to experience? Do I want this person to wow me with all the facts? Or do I want this person just to have a conversation with them and then we talk about the cool things in this town? So it really kind of depends on what type of tour you're on. So I'll tell you, I do a Gothic tour, I do a bike tour, I do a Gaudi tour, and I do a foodie tour. All different types of tours, and depending what your clientele will be, you have to give different attention to whoever's in your group. So on the walking tour, which probably is my favorite tour, uh, and it's my most favorite tour because as a lot of our clients are English speakers, majority of them are probably Americans, Canadians. I tie our experience as Americans into this tour, and it's a real interesting conversation, especially when I talk about Queen Isabella,
Mm.
and I make the connection between Christopher Columbus and Isabella in Barcelona, and how the new world would meet the old world here. And most people's minds are just blown by these facts because they're just fictional stories to most of us, right?
Mm.
1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Is that right? Something like that. But it doesn't really make much sense. They're just stories, right? Oh, this guy came, and then we have a holiday named after him. And why did we have a holiday named after him? But why is that now kind of a taboo? And why are things are changing? So that is what and why I enjoy about doing these tours. And your brother, I can't wait till he comes to Barcelona, because your brother is going to just, I mean, he and I are going to go probably on a 4-hour tour because of the history and the implications and the conversations that these things just just create. It's fascinating, not only for me, and I'm getting excited just talking about it, but then I hope to invoke that as well into the client and say, yeah, this is living history, and you're in the middle of it. Eat it up. And so that's my tour, and what I enjoy doing. And as an extension of that, you mentioned it earlier, I decided, well, as an entrepreneur, what else can I do, right? And so I've started a podcast and kind of a blog of my experiences here. So that's something that I did not know, that I realized there was some space there for it, and then I started acting on it, and I'm enjoying it. So it's a good time.
Tell us about your podcast and what it's about.
Well, the podcast is about my life in Barcelona. So I've talked about, there's not many up. I have many to edit and many to do. But as you know, the tour, there are no tours. I mean, I can't even get out of my house. And so I have to do some catch up on that. But the podcast is about my experiences, some of the things that you would want to do or want to learn about while you're here in Barcelona. We talk about Sant Jordi, the patron saint of Catalonia. We talk about barbecue in Barcelona. I know, right? Crazy.
What
We
about
talk
barbecue in
about, I
Barcelona?
know, yeah.
No, now you got to tell
Yeah,
us. You
yeah,
can't just tease us.
yeah. No, you have to go to the episode and listen to it. No, I'm
Oh
kidding.
man! All right, we'll put the link in
But
the notes.
but but it is yeah. So I just like, hey, I'm having a good time. Hey, look at this microphone. I can talk into it, and you can talk into it, and let's have a conversation. So all of a sudden, that has evolved into something that I had no idea I was getting into. But like all entrepreneurs do, they see an opportunity and they're like, well, how can I make that grow? And that's what's happened with the podcast. So it's uncommontourist.com. You can go on there, have a good time. I haven't updated it in probably a month because my life has been really involved with the corona problem. But yeah, so that's what I do. That's how it started. And here's an interesting part. And you and I had talked about this earlier about um, uh, 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 how when you have new businesses, you want to keep it to yourself and you don't want to hide it. And I have no problems telling people about my new project, which coincides with tourism. But every time I see a client, they ask me for recommendations. And I'm starting a business about using tour guides as the recommendation for people whenever they travel. Not TripAdvisor, not Expedia, not Google, using the tour guides as the point of reference for people's other experiences whenever they're out traveling. So I'm playing with that right now, and it's going to happen here in Barcelona. And the beauty of it, again, leaning on my past experiences as an entrepreneur, it's not worth doing one thing only once. As a guy that opened multiple locations with a smoothie factory, I realized it's just a matter of duplication. So if I can make this guide specific program work, I can just do it and recreate it in another city, and that's my goal. And the things just keep, adding on, and I love it. It's so much fun.
I can tell. I can absolutely tell that it's something that you enjoy, and I love the idea of really connecting tour guides as that's a reference point. So I've been around the world in many ways, many times, and you're right. Not all tours are created equal. I do
Mm.
find that there are individuals who really bring the country, the city, the event, or the activity to life like no other. And yeah, they definitely deserve a shout out. I remember going to Costa Rica and went to I can't even remember the name of the place, but it was a zip line. We did mud baths. It was like this volcanic area. And the tour guide, you wouldn't, first of all, I didn't feel like he was our tour guide at all. It felt like he was just like an older brother, cousin, just
Yeah.
taking us around because of how connected he was to us, how much he made sure that he tapped into the things that we were interested in. So there's definitely a gift when it comes to tourism that I feel might be under promoted, under explored.
Absolutely, it is. And here's the funny thing about that. What is the most effective type of marketing?
Word
Right?
of
It's
mouth.
word of mouth. And like you're telling me about your experience in Costa Rica, you trust that guide.
Mm-hmm.
If he would have told you to go to that other side of the mountain because there's a great restaurant that serves these awesome rice and beans, you would have gone.
Totally. And we did. We actually did do that.
And I realized that most tour guides don't have the resources to do that. So I stood up and I'm creating it for tour guides because it works. I'm doing it for the tour guides. I'm really becoming an advocate for tour guides because a lot of times a lot of these companies sell tickets, for example, to the Sagrada Familia here in Barcelona, and tour guides aren't able to make that commission like larger companies can. And I'm saying, wait, hold on. You really want to pay attention to these tour guides because they are the ones that are going to promote you the best. And so I'm creating that platform for tour guides, and we'll see what happens. But I'm really excited
I'm
about it.
excited. Well, I know some people I'm going to connect you to, not just tour guides, but people who might be great idea makers for you, or perhaps other resources. So we'll chat about that offline.
Awesome.
Hey, okay, Alvaro. So let's really get into this part now. The coronavirus clearly has been so evidently put. There we go. Yes, let's, as we talk about, I don't have a mask. I'm gonna
Don't.
here. I'm gonna do this.
Yes. Okay. All right. We can have a conversation.
Now we can talk. The coronavirus has really stopped, paused, slowed a lot of areas of the world and our economies. Talk to us about what's happening in Barcelona, in your neck of the woods. I know I see your Facebook post every night, or at least it seems like it's every night when you go out into the balconies and you share the experience. But tell us about what this has done for your community.
First of all, it's heartbreaking, honestly, because it isn't just about community and economy. It's about people losing their lives. And so it's heartbreaking because you realize what's going on. So if you have seen me on Facebook, which by the way, I invite everybody to find me on Facebook, every night at 8 o'clock, I go live because here in Spain, we all step out on our balconies and we all applaud and cheer and give joy and happiness and thanks for the medical staffs all across this country and now across the world who are working so hard to save lives. And we give thanks to the grocery stores that are open, allowing us to eat. We're thankful for allowing the pharmacies to stay open in case we need medicine. So we get out every night and we're very thankful for that. And we get out, we applaud them. I will put on some music and I've added Christmas lights to my balcony to add in the joy because, we really need everything. We need it all to keep us happy right now. It's a tough time. And I tell you that not to be somber, because I realize that my state and my country is about to experience the same thing. I tell you that because I want to give people hope that, well, first of all, well, second of all, I want people to give hope. First of all, I want people to protect themselves and realize that quarantining yourself is the best way of stopping this. Because what I'm experiencing now is huge. All restaurants have closed. All businesses have closed. Lives are lost. Or excuse me, not lives lost. Or, yes, lives are being lost, but livelihoods are being lost. It has crippled Barcelona down to nothing. Spain, for that matter. Italy, same thing is happening over there. And what do we do? How do we pay attention to this? I think that collectively we have these moments of joy, but I think that we as a country have come together, Spain, and we've realized that we need to do something about this. And if it is to be stuck in our houses for a month, 2 months, so be it. It has to be done. The lives, people's lives depend on us doing this and paying attention to these social mores that we don't like, right? We don't want. Who likes to be stuck in a house all day long with 2 kids and a lovely wife?
Wait, did you just say who likes to be stuck in the house?
Yes.
And then
Yes.
smiled and said, with 2 kids and a lovely wife? I hear some dissonance.
I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. Is this being recorded?
You're fine. No, it's not recorded.
Okay. All right. We
It's
edit
just
that
being
part out.
streamed
So,
live. That's all.
but it is, so these are the challenges. I mean, but seriously, these are the challenges that because I remember when I spoke to you originally, it was like, oh, May 24th. May 24th, I looked at the calendar. Oh, kids are in school and they're getting school about the time that we're going to start this. So yeah, I'll make it happen. The kids will be off to the side. No, now the kids are here at home and it has been trying. And I don't know, Anna and I have talked about the strain on everything. Resources. We go to the grocery store and we figure out what do we need, not the luxuries. My kid wants a Kinder Egg, which are very popular here in Spain. Hey, Papa, I'm sorry, I don't have any Kinder Eggs. They don't have anything. So my kids, interestingly enough, have all fallen into a fold of something's going on. We don't exactly understand it. They know the word. They hear the word. They ask the word. My son teases his sister saying, you have the coronavirus. Shut up. Don't do that. That's mean. But I don't know. We find solace in our home because we self-quarantined early. But because I live on a major street here in Barcelona, I see ambulance, I see police, I see hearse going up and down. And that is a very sobering moment. And at that moment, it all comes back to reality. People don't have work. They don't have jobs. The government here is not putting together a package like in the States where they're saying we're going to give people some money to assist them in this time of no work. So people are struggling. Yesterday I did read that Spain is now starting to consider making something available for those that don't have. But it has crippled the country socially. We don't know what we're going to do. It's awkward because, as you know, the Spanish kiss, cheek to cheek.
Yeah, what do you do now? Is the elbow thing, is that?
Elbow, fist bump. I don't, we'll find out. Give us another month and I'll be able to tell you and report back to you on that. But, you know, culturally, they're different here as an Italian. And that's why these countries have been hit so hard because we have different family members living with each other or in the same vicinity or are always in contact. So the younger generation, where this doesn't affect them as much, they're out socializing and they're out having a good time. And they're like, oh, my nose itches or my throat hurts. I don't really worry about it. But then I'm going to go back to my abuelita and go eat with them on Sunday. And they have no idea that they are just passing that on. So that is why quarantining and self-quarantining is so important, because you don't know whether you're a spreader or not. And now it's coming to the fact that if we exit the house, we wear a mask. Nobody knows who has it, who doesn't have it. There's not enough tests to go around to find out who has it or who doesn't have it. So everyone has to take the precaution of wearing a mask because you don't know. Thankfully for us, we are reaching that 14-day threshold where if you haven't had any effects or haven't gotten sick, that more than likely you're okay. And there are people that walk around like deer in the headlights. When you see them in the grocery stores, it's silent. There's no speaking, there's no touching, there's no interaction. It's I'm here. I have to go into the grocery store because there's only 10 people allowed in the grocery store. And there's a line of people outside that are social distance outside of the grocery store. So, you know, there's a line of 10 people that are waiting to get in. You've gotten in, you're looking for your stuff. You can't find the stuff that you normally buy, so you have to compensate by buying something else or getting creative and saying that we're going to eat this instead. And you pay, and then you get nervous because you put your finger on that keypad, right? Because you just use your debit card. Cash really is not being used right now.
Oh.
Cash is a big contributor to sharing viruses and sharing germs. So people are like, we don't take cash, we only want your card, but you still have to put your PIN number in, right? So we use either a key or a pen or something or alcohol to press before you touch the pin and alcohol after you've touched the pin pad.
Nice.
So it's pretty difficult. I'm not gonna lie to you. The economy has just taken a hit. Spain really hasn't recovered since the 2008 crisis. And I have no idea what's going to happen to Spain after this. I don't know.
So let's pivot a little bit. You seem to have your eye, or if not your finger, on the future for yourself and your family. And there's no fear, it sounds like. So what's the next frontier for Alvaro?
Alvaro's going to create a company called My Favorite Guide. And I know that My Favorite Guide is going to be successful because there's tour guides all around the world, and I am consulting with different type of tour guides and finding out what interests them and what they want to see. And so that's what I first see in my long-term future. In my short-term future, I don't really know, Valerie. I wish I could give you a more concrete answer. And I tell you, just because of what I've experienced here, will tourism even come back? I don't know. I have no idea. I'm going to become an English teacher again, so I'm doing that online. So we're going to start teaching people. You know, I'm teaching people in Asia and here in Spain as well, but that's being done online. So I do have a way to make a living temporarily. But I don't know what's going to happen. I wish I had a more concrete answer for you because we've never experienced this in the world before. Excuse me, we have experienced this before, but not as a modern day economy. And I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to stay optimistic, and I'm going to keep looking and searching for my family, for myself, because, you know, I love dabbling in a whole bunch of different things. So I don't know, maybe there will be something that comes up and I throw myfavoriteguide.com out of the window. And I think, you know, there's something else that I can contribute to society. I haven't found it yet, but I am willing to pivot. And it makes me nervous, Valerie, because you asked me that question and I can tell you what I want to do, but whether that reality is true, I'm going to do my best to make it happen, but I don't really know because we're going to have to come out of this and see where we stand. And what are we able to do? How long will it take if I stay in the tourism industry for the tourists to come back to Barcelona? I'm guessing it won't take long because people who are healthy will see the prices of the airline tickets and they're going to run over here, which will be a saving grace for Barcelona, where 25–30% of its economy is based on tourism. But outside of that, it's stressful because it's unknown. It
is. And I will say, you know, harkening back to what you were talking about with your love for travel and the tourism industry, some of my most memorable, most transformative, amazing experiences have been unexpected ones. You know, when I've taken a trip someplace, I remember going to Poland, and I happened to arrive the day, I think it was like Labor Day or something, the equivalent, or Memorial Day for Poland. And here I am in Krakow, and they're having these huge parades. And I had no idea, because I don't speak Polish, but I remember just getting caught up in all of this amazing experience because I happened to be in the city at that particular time. Had an amazing time. Same thing happened in Japan when I went to Japan, and I remember going to this, I met a friend of mine who's from Japan. We met right outside of Tokyo at this temple. She's like, oh, we all go to this temple, and this is where we take pictures, and this is what we do. And it happened to be like the one time of the year where they do this festival, and amazing. And so as you're sharing that, there's so much uncertainty right now because we don't know what's going to happen. I think what's clear to me as you're sharing is that you will remain open, that you'll remain hopeful, like you said. And there's a quality about you that I've been picking up on since we started this conversation, that quality, no matter what the circumstances are, feels like it's what's going to drive you to the next thing, which is how your life seemingly has been put together, right? From the smoothie days to now.
Yeah. I think that optimism is part of my DNA. It's kind of like education. Once you become an optimist, you can't take an optimist. You can't make them a pessimist. And it's funny because, like we said earlier, my failures have made me an optimist, which is strange. But I am open-minded. I think that as human beings, we are resilient. And this is very counter. My Spanish friends are going to get mad at me for saying this, but I've learned that Spanish are not as optimistic as I am. They're just not.
What do you say? Don't put that out there. Don't put
but
you still want to be a tour guide. What are you talking
about? Right. I've learned that
well, give us an example. Give us something tangible that you've seen or heard that gives you that impression.
Well, first of all, the Spanish really put their head in the sand when the coronavirus hit Italy. And they were like, oh, it'll never come here. Oh, it'll never come here. And that idea of, oh, it'll never come here is also consistent with the way that the majority of the people that I have seen here and experienced them, that's kind of the way that they act. Well, I'll use the Catalan example. I don't have many Catalan friends. I don't have many Catalan friends. How long did we go before one walked in on me?
I want to see your kids now. You've been keeping them away too long. All right, come on over. Who do you have here? Mia?
Say hello. This is Pia.
Pia.
You want to be with me here? You want to go back? Say hello, Valerie. Say hello, world.
She's like, I'm not ready for this. I don't have my makeup on.
You look great, Mom. Just make a little puffy here. There you go.
Pia, do you speak English and Catalan too?
Do you speak English, Mama? ¿Y parla catalán?
Really?
¿Y parla catalán?
Parla catalán too.
¿Parla catalán? ¿Y hablas castellano?
Yes. No, castellano también.
Yes, this little one and both of my kids, I'm fortunate enough that they speak 3 languages already.
That's lovely. Pia, ¿qué edad tienes? ¿Cuántos años tienes?
Mira, te están hablando, mamá. Mira, 4.
4.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me be off. I'll finish with Valerie and I'll give you something to eat. Okay, go wait with Mama. Then you wait here. You want to wait here with me?
Wait, hang on. Pia, what do you want to eat? Because if you say it now, your dad has to make it.
No, he doesn't. No. Okay, go find Mama and I'll be over there in a second, okay?
Mama is working too.
Okay, well, why don't you go work with Mama and then I'll finish up here and then okay, well, if I'm here, let me finish up and then we'll just hang out, okay?
Yeah, we want to hang out with Pia.
Okay. Well, how long did it last where I knew this was gonna happen?
You did great. You did great.
This is what I'm kind of saying is, like, for example, Catalans are also very interesting as a twist to Spain. For those of you who maybe have not heard yet, Catalonia wants to separate from Spain. So there's this strange push-pull right now with even speaking Spanish, which I don't speak Catalan. So I hear it. It's very funny how one of the things that I did learn, back to your question, Valerie, is as Americans, we always view other people that come to the United States as, how can I say this? That we know where they're from usually, we know what industries they're working in, and that's an ear. And we know what industries they're working in, and sometimes, as much as we hate to admit it, we have a little bit of hubris when it comes to whether it's we don't speak with an accent, they do, and we know they're foreigners. I have become that person. Right? I have become that person. They know that even when I speak Spanish, I don't speak with a Spanish accent. I speak with a Tex-Mex or Mexican accent. And todos dicen, mira, es de Mexico. No, I'm not from Mexico. But then I have to explain to them, well, Texas at one point was Spain, and then Texas at one point was Mexico, and then Texas became its own country, and then it became part of the United States. And they're like, what? So their mind is absolutely blown. But that has been a very humbling experience for me, Valerie, to be the foreigner. You know, it's tough to be a foreigner in the United States right now, right? With the situation and closing borders, and I have become that person. So, you know, whatever. So I'm going off on another tangent.
It sounds like an episode for your podcast.
Oh yeah, I've got so many.
So before Pia melts into a puddle of hunger, what else is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
You know, the only thing that I really want to share with everyone right now, because we are in the time that we're in, and I want, and what is happening here, what's happening here in Barcelona, we are going to experience in the United States. And I don't want to scare your listeners, but I kind of also want to scare your listeners and say, hey, you know what? Especially in Texas, people are not, Mama, hey, just give me 5 more minutes and then I'll go get you something to eat. Come on, please.
We're good. She's good. She's fine.
Okay, so I have to say this. And I talk about this because, by the way, you don't know this, but I've started a little mini podcast on my experiences here during the coronavirus. It's called the Corona Chronicles, and you can find it out there. And in there, I talk about my experiences. I talk about my experiences now, what I'm experiencing, what I'm seeing, what I see going on, the changes, the ebb and the flow of information. And the last thing I really want to say is this is an issue that everybody needs to pay attention to. Self-quarantine, self-quarantine, self-quarantine. It's the only way we're going to let the virus die. This morning I was watching the news and, there was a doctor on there saying that, well, maybe we should just quarantine in New York. The middle of the country is okay. And I absolutely disagree with that. Self-quarantining, wearing masks because you do not know whether you are a carrier of this is so important. And I say this for humanity's sake and for us Americans' sake. We have to pay attention to this. We cannot let it go. We cannot ignore it. I'm in the middle of it. I'm in the 13th. What day am I right now? I don't even know. I'm in the 13th day 11th? Yeah, day of my quarantine. And I have 3 more weeks to go. We are not going to, first it was just 2 weeks. Now they pushed it to April the 12th. April the 12th, and then we'll see what happens then. Because if it's not stopped, they're going to extend it another period where we're still going to be in quarantine. But like I said, we have to do this. We do not have a choice.
Yep.
Many people are going to die, and unfortunately, it's the people that are most at risk, whether it be the older generation where their lungs don't have the capacity like they used to, and that's the reason why young people are surviving this, or the lower social economics that don't allow people to have resources or accessibilities to better healthcare.
And protection.
So I'm really pleading with people to pay attention to this. And I know I really went off topic, and I'm really sorry that this is counter to what you normally talk about.
No, well, when it's called time to come alive, not only figuratively, but also literally.
It is.
I appreciate you not only for sharing what made you come alive in your transition as a business owner, but also in the things that you've discovered about yourself in the process, the fact that you're bringing new light to some of the experiences in another country, and that right now this time of our history is also very telling. And if we want to be able to see the other side of it, there's some precautions that we're going to have to take. I so appreciate all of the things that you shared with us, Alvaro.
Yeah, I really had a great time here, Valerie. And my last thing I'm going to say is just, I'm never going to stop being an optimist, even with right now and what we're experiencing and what we're seeing. We're going to come out of this if we're smart, and I'm going to come out and I'm going to rally as many people as I can to get them back together and say, what can we do to help this industry? What can we do to help these people? What can we do to help my country here and my country and back in Texas? And so, yeah, I
My
really
country back in Texas.
You caught that? You caught that, did you?
I did catch that.
Yes.
My
I'm
country
still a
back.
proud Texan.
All right. Well, I know you'll be optimistic as you make your dear Pia some lunch or some dinner. What time is it over there, by the way?
I wish I knew. Well, what time is it there?
Sorry, it's 10 a.m.
It's 10 a.m.
Central
So,
Time.
so I think we're 4
4
p.m.
4 p.m.
We're
or so.
1600 here, yeah.
Okay, 1600. Well, fantastic. Alvaro, thank you so much for joining us today for Time to Come Alive. Those of you who would like to, obviously, you have this live streaming on Facebook, but if you want this episode in your inbox, make sure that you subscribe to www.timetocomealive.com, as you see on the screen, and we'll be happy to share this with you on other media platforms. Alvaro, have a wonderful week or rest of the week.
I love it. I love it, Valerie. Yes. I love what you do. Do not stop what you're doing. Passion, and opportunity will find its way. And I can guarantee that you will not only be talking to little guys like me, but you are going to be talking to leaders of countries, leaders of large businesses. And I can't wait for that day, because I got an interview with you before you were the famous Valerie Hope.
Hey, I so appreciate that, and I receive it.
Good.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right, thanks.
Hang on, Alvaro.